Assalamu alaikum. This is video 2. Okay, so it's a social program whereby when you make an extra dollar, we take that extra dollar, and that keeps a person in poverty, right? And it's comparative. It's comparative to Central American nations, third world countries, despite being the most autocratic nation in the world. That's the type of program they have. They have zero tolerance for social programs, social improving society, yet they claim they're very philanthropic about their charitable donations, right? Okay, they don't even want to pay taxes, right? Okay, autocrats use labels to warn and demonstrate with to warn and demonstrate when the conscious orientation of the corporate consciousness is forced to curve to fall too far to the liberal left based on infidels, the influence, or their influence in the market, right? Or if it does not fall enough to the conservative Christian Zionist right, or the patriotic right? Those patriotic to the corporate crest. Okay, or those who hold the consciousness to the corporate crest, right? If it doesn't fall in the direction. Okay, now according to the egalitarian doctrine, infidels are antichrist if they cannot commit their antichrist if they cannot commit their consciousness to the crest, right? And those that go against the faith of many anointed crown heads. Okay. Now, the system is abusive, has an abusive social conditioning. Stated, any man with a consciousness is weak, soft, or a sissy, wimp, punk, fag, and any woman with a consciousness, okay, is also considered hard, masculine, or a lesbian, right? Now, in Central, despite the Central, Western, and the Southern regions, which I call CWS, those Central, Western, and those Central, Western, and Southern regions of Africa, despite they produce the most dominant of all genome markers, all others are considered recessive to it, right? Thus, it is the biological standard to represent an unpatriotic consciousness of universal love. So those with the dominant genetic markings are considered unpatriotic to the consciousness of the corporate crest, right? The corporate consciousness, okay? And they are considered antichrist, infidels, right? Okay. Because they represent universal love, right? And that universal love is unpatriotic, to care for all your fellow man. Okay, you're to be loyal to cultural supremacy, right? The cultural supremacist, the cultural supremacist, okay, and their commercial imperialism, right? Okay. So now, dominance makes those from these regions, that is Central, Western, and Southern parts of Africa, okay, dominance, their genetic dominant markings, okay, makes those from these regions have the most intense effects on other genomes or other consciousness, because they follow the music, the style, the dress, the language, the walk, the talk, just everything, okay? They imitate the African people, okay? And yeah, okay. Now, okay, so it represents a dominant cult, okay, or culture. That's what I'm saying. Okay, thus if the king, okay, thus if the temple knights, okay, who follow the supremacists, or who believe themselves to be supreme, right? if they, the Temple Knights, could not repress the genome, the African genome, or the infidels, or the Antichrist, okay, it had to repress, it had to, okay, so if they couldn't repress it, okay, well, that's what they want to do, is repress it, right? From spreading, from influencing the culture that sees itself as supreme, right? Superior, right? So, if they could not suppress the Antichrist, with whom they consider to be the Antichrist, right, from advancing or reproducing its love, okay, or spreading its love, thus the greatest degree of, okay, thus is why they had to implement the greatest degree of corporate policing or military force, right, to apply, well, is applied to repress those with the strongest genetic traits from the central, central, western, and southern parts of Africa, and generally, overall, all those with hue in their, all those pigmented, right, with melanin, right? Okay, so CWS bearers of infidelity are placed at the furthest band of the egalitarian spectrum and held there by the temple of negative propaganda, or the temple of Babel, under a repressive weight of bureaucratic isms of mixed melon, right? Mixed melon, right? Okay. Now you have the barrios and the ghettos, and they have mixed melon, all people from different cultural backgrounds, okay, who are repressed to those areas by poverty, but yet still within those areas, they still have the class system that is still active, right? Okay. So okay. So that's what I'm speaking of when I'm speaking of mixed melon and the misfits, and still the one of African descent is still on the bottom, even in those and under those harsh conditions. Okay, pushed to the very jagged edge of the economic structure. Okay, so despite the majority of CWS bearers who dwell among the egalitarians are native to the genetic consciousness of the corporate consciousness, okay, or yeah, the corporate consciousness, okay. They are placed, okay, what did I say? Okay, okay, despite, where am I at? Okay, okay, there, okay, let me see. Okay, here we go. Okay, let me see, okay, yeah, okay, no, okay, I'll start from here. The theocratic structure places all who bear less threatening genetic markings. Oh no, I want to go back up to where I was because I don't want to miss nothing. Okay, so I'll start from here. CWS bearers of infidelity are placed at the furthest end of the egalitarian spectrum and held there by the temple of negative propaganda with stereotypes, under a repressive weight of bureaucratic isms, classisms. The theocratic structure places all others who bear less threatening genetic markings on economic bands, classism, before those of the CWS African regions who to reinforce the egalitarian infrastructure, commercial infrastructure. Despite the majority of CWS bearers who dwell among the egalitarians are native to, their genetic consciousness places their human nature to curve beneath the value of any newly immigrant. Truly, out of one consciousness came all consciousness, and those closest to the one are repressed to the greatest degree, and those closest to the commercial one, okay, well, and those closest to the one are, okay, I got it. Okay, yeah, so truly out of one consciousness came all consciousness, and those closest to the one, like the universal one, Allah, are with the universal consciousness, the collective mind, are repressed to the greatest degree. Those from the cradle share the universal love, the collective mind, the potential to open their pituitary gland, right? Not the pituitary gland, but the pineal gland and the crown chakra. Okay, so they're repressed the most. For all humanity, okay, so those from the cradle share the universal love for all humanity. Thus, they are staged to suffer the greatest. In a system where fidelity is measured on a purely egalitarian Gentile genome or a fascist genome, the potential strength of the African genome consciousness can easily reverse the background or the direction, the orientation of the consciousness within the commercial paradigm, right? Because their crown chakra can open and they care about humanity. And as I said, the African culture is one of the most influential cultures in the world. Okay, rap can tell you that. Michael Jackson can tell you that. And he's not the king just because he's just anybody. No, not just anybody could achieve what Michael Jackson can achieve. Okay, a commercial core power is just that, commercial power. It forces people to just like in Iraq, Afghanistan, it wants to do in Iran and Syria, force democracy upon someone. Well, with African culture, it doesn't have to force anybody to do anything. It simply is it simply in harmony with the universal vibration, and thus the rhythm of the soul is likewise becomes is harmonized by it. So it is like the blue diamond. Okay, all others its vibration influence the vibration of, let's say, the white diamonds. Okay, so that's why I say it has the potential to reverse it. That's why in the 60s, if you notice, you had the 60s. First, you had the rhythm and blues, and you had really taking over the culture in the 50s and the 60s, right? Before that, it was like the big bands and stuff like that was really popular, right? And the subculture was like the rhythm and blues and which greatly influenced rock and roll, which out of it was born rock and roll, basically. Okay, but it was really becoming popular, mainstream. And they didn't want that. So here you come with the Beatles, and here you come with Elvis Presley and other artists to kind of repress the influence of rock and roll, of rhythm and blues in mainstream culture, mainstream society. And then they delegated rhythm and blues basically to become a black thing, okay, when it was a global thing, when it is a global thing. And even today, they try to repress rhythm and blues. And I got to do the video on rhythm and blues. But the point is, with rhythm and blues, it kept families together because of the strength of the music and the wisdom in the music, the inspiration in the music. Taught you to hold on by holding those notes and holding on, right? So we'll get to that. But so in that, it has the potential, the strength of the African culture has the potential to change the dynamics of commercial imperialism and cultural hegemony as it relates to the Christian Zionist or Western, what is it called? What was it called when it first came here? Protestant Christian, let's say Protestant Zionist Christianity, Christian Judaism, let's put it that way, okay? But mainly dominated by the Zionist orientation, influenced by Zionism, right? Okay, so it can reverse that, and they don't want that. That's the direction they want to go, to build that temple, right? Okay, so that's why the African genome is repressed the greatest under all the other bands of the color spectrum, of the hue spectrum, let's say, right? It's repressed to the outer edges and marked like radiation, like plutonium contaminated, right? Okay. Okay. So that's why they repress it to the furthest degree, because it's easy. It has the ability, like rap, like Michael Jackson, to influence all of humanity as it's supposed to do, as it's naturally created to do, right? Because didn't all man, all woman come from originally the black man, from black clay, right? Okay. So that the black man is the daddy, right, of humanity, as the black woman is the mother of humanity. Okay. Okay, so now, so we say, as we said, the potential strength of the African genome can affect physically and consciously, right? By the opening of the pituitary gland, okay? Not pituitary gland, but the pineal gland. It can easily reverse the background or the orientation from white or from west to east, or from black, from white to black, or from east back to west, right? So it makes this genome, these infidels, right? These infidels make it gravely is a grave threat to the crowned heads, and the crowned heads being what? Those who control the nations of the world, right? Now, so CWF African genome is viewed as hazardous as radiation. And its bearers, such as myself, okay, are to be handled with extreme consciousness, fear, threat, fear-mongering, right? Remember Willie Horton and Hillary Clinton talking about, what she talk about? Predatory. The predatory consciousness is, they're irredeemable. There's no hope for them. And we can talk about that later in order to give you the sense that, oh, she recognizes that there's a social reason as to why such youth would become outrage at the injustice. But no, let's not look at that. Let's bring them to Hill first. And as you know, Hill is under the foot, right? Make them bow down first. Fuck you, Hillary Clinton, and fuck you too, Trump, because y'all both a piece of shit. Okay, Bernie Sanders, okay, a neutral man, a good man, a man with dignity, okay, a man with dignity. Okay, who cares about all humanity? Okay, now, so it makes him a grave threat to commercial imperialism, because they would prove it wrong, like Michael Jackson proved it wrong by being the king east and west, right? He proved them wrong, so they had to attack him and say, oh, he wanted to go after a little boy with cancer. He wanted to pursue him intimately, if you know what I mean. And that's not, and I say that way is out of respect for the king, right? So they had to try to put some dirt on him, okay, but he knocked that shit off, okay, and proved them wrong. But anyway, the point is, they had to do that because he proved the commercial imperialism was wrong, is a lie. He proved cultural supremacy is a lie. That's what he proved. So they had to try. He proved the Beatles were a lie. He proved Elvis was a lie. He proved rock and roll was a lie. That's what he proved. Okay, and they didn't like that. This soft-spoken black man with a kind, gentle heart, okay, proved all they asses wrong, proved the whole world wrong, their whole world of supremacy, of imperialism wrong, the whole world of colonialism wrong, okay, and he also proved racism wrong, because the whole world is not black, the whole world is not white, the whole world is a combination of black and white, but black and white came out of the black, right? Because we're one, right? Okay, so they proved them wrong. They did not like them. They had to attack him, okay? Okay, just like rap is proving them wrong. Okay, now, so it's threatening. The consciousness of the African is threatening. Okay, so CWS African genome is viewed as hazardous as radiation, and its bearers are handled with extreme caution, and sometimes like with Malcolm X, right, with the bullet. The ballot box for the black man is the bullet, right? Martin Luther King, Malcolm X's father, and so many other civil rights activists, and contemporary activists today, like Sandra Bland, right? Okay. Okay, they're too a dangerous threat. Okay, now, okay, it is extreme melanin humanitarian love. They don't want that race mixing. They don't want that conscious mixing, and it's not white people. It's who's at the top, and not white people. White people love black people. That's why they go around talking in their ancestral heritage. Okay, speaking the language of their fellow black brothers and sisters, right? Their street lingo, okay, and dressing like them too, and they can dress like that too because that's their heritage too. Africa is white people's heritage, Europeans' heritage too. You know, but they don't want that. They don't want that race mixing, right? That cultural mixing, because then they won't be able to know who's who and who to brainwash and who to try to take to their side and play that game with. Okay, they don't want that because they want to keep the European backwards. Okay, they don't want him to go back home to the east where he came from. They want to keep him brainwashed. Okay, playing their game. Playing the game of imperialism for supremacy and colonialism, right? Like Donald Trump, right? Trying to take humanity backwards. Okay. Okay. So they don't want that humanitarian love. Okay. They want to keep the world full of hatred with that commercial imperialism and one man rule, right? The market control, dominate the economic system, right? Okay. Okay. So we're going to go to video 3.